is decentralization, because you already mentioned them, but like let's pretend we're talking to people that never heard these terms before. So describe blockchain, decentralization, and centralization.
Right. So blockchain is a technology that kind of falls under the category of decentralization. So let's go to decentralization first. So it's a decentralization of power, right, away from in the hands of a few to the hands of the many, right? So let's take an example of a centralized system. We would know that, most notably as like a government, right? Mm-hmm. Or, a corporation where it's a top-down system where the control and the decision-making is all done. Maybe it could be in a pyramid structure, right? Or it could be just, like straight top down, like a chain of command or something like that, right? Now a decentralized system is quite different. You can imagine, instead of a pyramid, you can imagine like a circle maybe. And there's these little like polka dots all in the circle, and there's a web in between them. And each one of those is a central point of power. And if someone were to poke out one of those polka dots, well, although all those other polka dots are all on that web, they can all kind of take over the responsibility for maintaining the system or the network, if you will. So another way, an analogy I like to say for decentralization is a dinner party, like the example. So you can have a centralized dinner party or a decentralized dinner party. So let's say you want to go out and take a bunch of friends out to dinner, and you go to a restaurant, and the chef, you don't know it, but he's having a real bad night. Maybe he had a little bit too much whatever in the back. He had a rough night, and he burns the main courses. So at this point, your dinner party's screwed. You got to go. You got to find a new restaurant. There was a single point of failure there, right? It was not a centralized system. The power lied pretty much in that chef running the show. And if he's incapacitated for whatever reason, everything else kind of crumbles below that, right? Yep. So the decentralized aspect of this is oh my God, what was I going to say? It's a potluck, right? So you have the potluck, you got everybody over, everybody contributes their own dish to this dinner party. And if a couple people, burn their dishes, or you don't like the way they spice whatever, they put too much salt, too little salt, it's okay, because 6 other people brought amazing dishes and everybody can share, right? It's not a big deal. There's no single point of failure there. There's enough people to support the network that if something goes wrong, and it will go wrong, we have a backup plan. We have many backup plans. And so how this applies to where we are right now in the technological age, in the modern age, we've grown up in the paradigm of centralized systems, from governments to major religions, to all the major institutions, pretty much everything, education, everything that you can think of, every industry that you can think of, every institution is all centralized, right? Mm-hmm. And when we get to the technological age, we start to really see where this breaks down on a day-to-day level, because when we have a single point of failure in these global systems, or these systems that are just so big, it affects massive people on a global scale. I mean, just a couple of days ago, we had a down of Facebook, right? And yep. People realized real quick how much they rely on something like that, right? Or mm-hmm. when, a bank goes down, or a bank gets hacked, or something, we have these major outages, or even if the power goes out, right? A massive power goes out, and the Eastern Seaboard goes out. That's happened before, right? We get to see how global everything is, and how interconnected we are, and how fragile those systems are. If something goes wrong, a lot of people are affected in one fell swoop. So decentralized technologies wants to basically disrupt all of those industries, all of those institutions, with putting the power back into the people's hands, so that if something goes wrong, it's not one big disaster, right? We can rely on each other, or we can rely on whatever supporting the network. So, like you said, the biggest example is that everybody knows about is Bitcoin, right? So it started out as a technology, a cryptographic technology that someone released into the wild, essentially, and people, in a very short amount of time, picked up on the idea, started thinking, this is a good idea, I'm going to support it. And the more people that believed in it, the more people that contributed to it, the more people that interacted with Bitcoin, All of a sudden we have a worldwide network that does not discriminate against race, nationality, or any kind of barrier to entry other than knowledge of how it might work or how to participate. And we have this decentralized system that's worldwide, and it's disrupting different industries. It's disrupting banking. It's disrupting, the financial system to the point where essentially you could have an unnumbered Swiss bank in your back pocket, right? You can walk across an international border with hundreds of millions of dollars inside your head and nobody would ever know it, right? It's a very powerful technology and no one owns it. No one controls it. No government controls it. No one single entity controls it. So it's a very powerful decentralized technology. And that's what everybody knows as the blockchain. So I guess I can explain the blockchain now. The blockchain is essentially in Bitcoin, it's a ledger. So just like at a bank, you have a ledger that tracks all of your transactions in your checking account or whatever, right? And in this case, this ledger, it actually tracks all of the transactions that have ever been done in the history of Bitcoin since the first block was created. We have a chain of blocks, a chain of ledgers. And this is good and this is bad. What's good about it is that basically it roots out fraud. It roots out bad actors pretending to be someone who they're not, or trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes financially. And it keeps power in check by everything being over the table. Now, the flip side of that, the dark side to that, is that everything's public, right? So people don't value privacy, but they will soon. As soon as it starts to hurt them, and they realize what it is, they will. Absolutely. They will see that they want their privacy and it's been, taken away from them. And because Bitcoin right now, a lot of people consider it to be anonymous, but it's not. It's only pseudo-anonymous.
Yep. Thank you for saying that.
Although, that ledger doesn't have your name on it, right? When you're interacting with Bitcoin, it has an address, and with the right amount of time and money and investigation, and in the future, it will be, commonplace to basically check every transaction and where it comes from. So there's a good and a bad thing to that. And that's where the opportunity in the free market, since we were talking about agorism and anarcho-capitalism, that's really what it's about is free market capitalism. I should mention that because before we started talking about communism, people were like, why do you talk about communism and agorism? But yeah, that's a free market thing, right? So the free market has come along already and solved some of those issues.
Absolutely.
So that's one example of a decentralized technology disrupting the financial industry. But pretty much like I was saying,